Good morning and welcome to this YouTube Live. Thank you so much for joining me. And to those of you who are watching the replay, which is normally most of you, so thank you so much. Today is my final live for this year, hence the sparkly jumper. Thought get in the Christmas spirit. And I will be releasing other videos before the end of the year, but this is the last live I'm going to do. So I hope you enjoy this one. This is really quite timely, I think, given that we're coming to the end of the year, because today I want to talk about what it actually takes to transform your voice. And, this is something that I think about a lot as someone that has been having singing lessons myself since I was, oh goodness, I just saw this pop-up box. Someone that has had singing lessons since I was 10 years old. So I've been in this world for a long time as a singer and as a speaker. And it's not a quick fix, I'm afraid. There's a lot of people out there that are looking for that quick fix, that, give me 2 quick tips to get through a meeting or presentation. It really just doesn't work like that. And so today I'm going to talk about what it really takes to transform your voice. And I'm going to be using a model by a man called Martin Broadwell, who was I'm not actually sure if he's still alive. Maybe someone will be able to tell me. I couldn't find this information out, but I think he's the first person that really used this model that I could see. And he called it this learning model. And he was a management consultant in the 1960s. And this is like a 4-stage learning model. So I'm going to use that as a vague kind of structure for today's live, but I'm also going to be adding in my own nuggets of wisdom to this. So I hope that this really, really helps you to understand. And actually, to be honest, you can apply this to anything, not just the voice. I'm going to be talking about it as it relates to the voice, but you could really apply this to absolutely anything that you want to become masterful at. So for those of you who don't know, my name's Anuska Taylor, and I'm a voice coach, I'm a Jungian life coach, and a singer-songwriter. So when I work with clients, I'm really bringing the 3 worlds together, which I believe is what it really requires to become a masterful speaker or voice user. So that you obviously need the technical aspect of voice, you need the emotional aspect, the psychological understanding, the emotional understanding, and then the kind of creative expression. And so those 3 worlds for me come together to help clients really step into their true voice and their true power. So as I said, quick tips just don't work. And I know we're in a world now, everyone wants quick tips, quick hacks, quick this, quick that. And I myself have done some videos, a couple of tips to get you through this. But really and truly, you cannot create lasting change. So you have to really decide, what is it I really want? And it's so essential. And actually, they say it takes sort of 2 months to really change a habit. And that's assuming that you're showing up consistently. And which is why if you work with me privately, it's a 2-month intensive container initially, and then you have support with me for the following 6 months. But the first 2 months is really this intensive container for this reason. So let's look at Martin's stages of learning. And as I say, I'm going to add in my own little bits here and there. But just more broadly, what I want to say first up is I think there's kind of 4 C's to becoming masterful at anything. But obviously, I'm going to be talking about the voice here. So commitment, essential. Can't get good at anything if you're not committed. And that's not just committed with your time, but committed with your resources as well. So committed, consistency. So showing up, doing the practice, doing the work, even when you don't feel like it. The ego will always tell you it's not the right time. I don't have time. I don't feel like it. So it's just learning to work with that part of your mind that will always try and talk you out of any growth. Courage. This is a big one, and actually one that perhaps I'm going to talk more about in a minute, but perhaps doesn't really get talked about in terms of learning. It really takes a lot of courage because we are changing old patterns, we're changing old habits. There's a reason why you've got that pattern or that habit in the first place. So to create something new is going to be a threat to the old self. So part of the reason it requires so much courage and it's so challenging is we're almost letting that old self die and we're stepping into something new. But more importantly, we're stepping into who we always were and who we are. And that old self is just more about survival. And then finally, consciousness, because I wanted to keep it with the C's, but you could also think about this as awareness. So, really becoming super, super conscious of your voice, becoming very aware of what you do, what you don't do, the thoughts that you have, not only when you're using your voice and speaking and practicing, but just more broadly when you're out in the world. Notice where your mind goes when you're listening to other people speak. So all of that is really important. So they're my 4 C's to start with: commitment, consistency, courage, and consciousness / awareness. So I'm going to use an example to run through all these 4 stages so you can see how this works. But the first stage that Martin talked about was unconscious incompetence. It's a great title. Unconscious incompetence, meaning you don't know you have a problem, quote unquote. So you don't know there's anything to change. You're not really aware. You're in this kind of blissful state of ignorance. So it's the kind of ignorance stage. You don't know what you don't know. And this could be, I mean, from my perspective, this could fall into 2 categories. So either you really have absolutely no idea, or maybe you have an inkling, but you don't think there's anything you can do about it. But either way, whichever category you're in, you're not going to take any action in this first stage. So I'm going to use the example of people that mumble because it's so common and something a lot of people ask me about. A lot of my videos are geared to people that mumble because it's such a common trait I see with voices. So if you are someone that mumbles in this first stage, you wouldn't even be aware that you mumble. Or if you do mumble, you'd be like, well, there's nothing I can do. I've always mumbled, so that's just how it is. So I think the first stage is really there's no action, there's limited awareness, and real, maybe even denial, and you're not going to take any action in this first stage. Now, most likely, if you're watching this video, you are not in that first stage. I'd be very surprised because you wouldn't even be watching this video if you were in that first stage. So let's assume that you're at least in the second stage of this 4-stage learning process. So the second stage is conscious incompetence. So we've gone from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. So what that means is now you know that there is something wrong with your voice. You know, now you know you mumble. Perhaps you've had some feedback. And certainly some of the people I've worked with in the past, the only reason they're there is because someone's told them, that perhaps they've had a 360 review and someone has said, well, look, we can't understand anything you're saying. It's really hard work listening to you. It could be that you've listened back to yourself and you're like, oh my God, is this what people have to put up with? I can barely understand myself, let alone anyone else trying to understand me. So this is where you start to have that awareness. The awareness starts to grow. And as I say, it could come from someone outside of you, like a partner or a peer or a colleague or a boss. Or that awareness could come from yourself and you're listening to yourself in a recording. Now, what I find really interesting about this is a lot of people just don't listen to themselves. So therefore, they never really get this awareness. And I think when people do listen to themselves, they're often quite surprised at what they hear. Now, the important part of this stage is you are now, because you're aware there's a problem, quote unquote, that you want to solve, you're looking for that knowledge and that expertise to fill that gap. Now you're beginning to take some action. So you could well be in this stage and watching this video. So one of the things we often do when we start to become aware that, okay, there's something that's not quite working for me, whatever it is, but we're using the voice because I'm a voice coach, we start to sort of do some research online and we go to YouTube. I mean, I do the same thing. I'll go into YouTube and put in whatever I'm searching for. We all do it. So we use YouTube, we use Google. There is so much information out there. So you'll probably find some videos, and this is where the learning process starts. So you start watching videos. Maybe you might buy a book. Maybe you might go and sign up for a workshop. Maybe you might go and work with a voice coach. Maybe you'll just book a session or two. And this is where it starts. But somewhere along the line, you realize that this isn't going to cut it, because what I see a lot of people do is they're trying to do it on the cheap. They're trying to do it on the surface and on the cheap. So they do the odd thing here and there, and then they try and cobble it together. And then they wonder why they're not really getting any lasting results. Because as I said at the beginning, you're not going to create change with your voice with just quick fixes. You know, the odd session here, the odd session there. It just doesn't work. If you really want to create lasting, profound change and really allow yourself to embody this, not have to intellectually think about everything you do. So there's probably going to be at this stage a lot of frustration and confusion, because you don't really know. Now you're aware that there's this problem that you want to solve, but now it's like, well, how do I fix it? What do I do? Who do I work with? What do I read? What exercises do I do? And so this is where it can become quite confusing for people. And there's a lot of frustration because you want to create a change, and it's human nature. We want to create a change, but we have to really allow this process. We have to be patient with the process. We have to allow the process to work itself through. So at this stage, after you've realized that trying to cobble together freebies here and there doesn't actually really create change, you might be in this stage for a year or two or more. You might be trying to do it yourself. I don't want to spend any money. I don't really want to put much time into this. So I'm going to try and do it myself. And then 2 or 3 years, 4 years, 5 years might go by, and you're like, okay, I'm still in the same place. Nothing's really changed. Maybe now I need to invest in someone properly. Maybe now I need to throw myself into this properly. Because real change and learning requires commitment and consistency, which is why I say it just doesn't work. But also, as someone that's been in this world since I was 10, I would also say that it's very hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. You just don't know what you don't know, as we said at the beginning. So often people just aren't aware enough of their voice to know what's actually really going on and what they actually really need to work on. Even if they have all the exercises, it's like, well, which ones are right for me? And then how do I apply them in my voice? Because that's the key. You can get the exercises from a book or a video, but it's the application of them in your voice that is where you need someone like myself to help you, because that's going to look different for every single person. So that's stage 2. So that's conscious incompetence. Now you're aware, you've started putting your feelers out. You're perhaps starting to invest a little bit more because you're realizing that the freebies don't really cut it. Okay, so then the stage 3 is probably where you're now fully invested in something, working with a coach, working with a teacher, whatever it is for you. And this is where we get to the stage of conscious competence. I'm just making sure I get these the right way around. Conscious competence. So now we're starting to develop a skill. We're starting to understand, okay, I mumble. I'm aware that I mumble. And now I'm working with someone that's helping me to work through this. So she's getting me to warm up. She's getting me to do some specific exercises to get my articulators moving. She's getting me to look at more intentional articulation. She's getting me to drive my voice with the deeper breath. She's getting me to elevate my pitch so I'm more in alignment with my optimal speaking pitch. So all of this stuff is now coming together. So now you are aware, and now it's a case of practicing. And it might be tweaked, and we might try some things that might not work, but now we're on this path. We kind of all know where we're going, and you are probably now invested in it more fully. So this is where you are more committed. There's now a consistent practice because you recognize now what is actually required. Now, this is the stage that Martin didn't put in, which I'm going to add in because he went from this to the final stage. I'm going to add in another stage here to conscious competence. And this is the essence of my work, because you can have all the exercises in the world, but if unconsciously you have a fear of having the thing that you want, if there's any resistance to it at all, you won't allow yourself to go there fully. So either you won't practice, and I hear this a lot from clients, and it's a normal part of the process. This is the thing. But if you're trying to do it by yourself, you will just give up. So you will say, I haven't had time to practice. It's been really busy at work. Stuff's going on at home. I haven't had time. I haven't had time. Stuff is happening. I hear this a lot. You just got to see that that's your ego resisting you changing and growing, because we can always find 5 minutes. And honestly, if you can't find 5 minutes in your day for something that's really important to you, you probably need to be rethinking and relooking at your day. Because even if you get up 5 minutes earlier, it really is 5 minutes a day of focused, consistent practice. If that's all you did in a very conscious way, you would create change. So we really have, when we go to create anything new in our life, when we go to learn something, we're going to bump up almost against this invisible force that's stopping you. And so it will show up as, I don't have time to practice, which is very common because that seems very logical to everyone else. It could also be that you do the practice, so you do the exercises, but you're not fully committed to them. So you've got kind of got 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So you kind of half do them. You don't fully go for it. An example I get a lot of clients to do, particularly with the whole mumbling example, is I will get them to overly articulate, overly exaggerate whatever it is they're saying, because we have to go to an extreme when we're trying to create new habits to find a new middle ground. And often when I get people to overly articulate, I'll say, right, I want you to overly articulate this sentence and say it's my name's Anuska. So they're going, my name's Anuska in the mumbled version. And then I'm like, right, I want you to overly articulate that. So they go, my name's Anuska. It's not really overly articulating. My name is Anuska would be overly articulating. So you can see the ego is really resisting going to that full expression of that intentional articulation. So it gives you maybe like 5% more than where you were, but it's not allowing you to go fully all out. And this is what I mean by 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And it's, if you're doing this by yourself, it's so hard to catch yourself, because you're like, no, I'm doing the exercises. I'm doing the intentional articulation exercises. But you're kind of not. So you are in terms of actually going through the motions, but you're not fully committed to the process. And this is because unconsciously you don't want to be able to be heard. And so this is why this is so important. So it's more than a physical change. So when people say to me, oh, I just need to go away and practice, I'm like, yes, yes, and no, because it's about how you practice. It's not just about practicing. How are you practicing? Using that as an example, very, very common example, actually, because it's something that I will get most people that mumble to do, to go to an extreme, to overly articulate in a way that feels really uncomfortable to them, not physically, emotionally. So we've got to get our mind, body, and voice in alignment. And normally what happens is, because most of our thoughts are unconscious, 95% of them are unconscious at least, we're working just with that 5% of what we're conscious of. So we 5% of our mind's like, I'm doing the exercises, I'm doing I'm doing everything Anuska's told me to do, but 95% of your mind's still in resistance. So we have to see that this alignment is absolutely essential. And you need both. You have to do the physical exercises because it's a muscle or muscles that we're training, but your mind and body have to be in alignment with your voice. So if you've got one and not the other, this is where you can end up just getting stuck for ages. And which is why I think it's very hard to do by yourself, because you won't know that you're not fully embracing the exercise necessarily, because you'll think that you're articulating, you'll think that you're speaking loudly, you'll think whatever it is. I mean, there's so many examples I could give you here, particularly working with singers as well. I'll get them and I'll say, "All right, I want you to kind of go for that really aggressively." And their idea of aggressive is, very meek and mild. And I'm like, no, 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 I want way more than that. I want 10 times more than what you've just given me. So this is what I mean. It's the ego is in resistance, and that's what we have to work through. So we also at this stage as well, so it's not just, working through those fears and those habits that are very unconscious, those blocks. It's almost, as I said, like that invisible force. It's then integrating whatever is coming up for you and really connecting to something deeper. And I was listening to Gabby Bernstein, or Bernstein, as I would say, um, earlier, and she was talking about bringing presence and power. Was it presence and power? So, presence and energy, I should say. She was talking about bringing presence and energy. And she was saying it's not really about the words. And we know this to be true. It's the presence and energy that we bring. And that really comes through our mind. That really comes through our thoughts, our beliefs, how we feel about ourselves. That is going to be literally sort of transported through our voice. So if we have any resistance or fear, we're not going to bring that presence and energy. So it really doesn't matter what you say. The presence and energy is the most important thing. Now, stage 4, which is coming back to Martin's stages. So this is his stage, and this is unconscious competence. So this is now where you've done the work, you've been doing all your exercises, you've gone deeper, you've looked at your patterns, you've looked at the shadow of why don't I really want to be heard? What's this really about? Why don't I want a clear, powerful voice? Why am I hiding? And now there's nothing in your way. Your mind, body, and voice are singing from the same hymn sheet, pardon the pun. We're all communicating at the same level. And now there's nothing to stop your voice coming out, because you're doing the work to strengthen it, to keep it flexible and healthy, but your mind is not stopping it. So there's no constriction around the voice. There's no thoughts saying, "Oh, no, that's too much. You shouldn't be speaking like that. What will they think of you if you become like really powerful when you speak?" So all of these thoughts, and this is why I was saying at the beginning, like it's an awareness exercise as well, because sometimes these thoughts are fleeting. You could have this thought for like 2 seconds. And if you're not aware, you won't even notice it. But it's catching these little thoughts of where does my mind want me to pull back? Where do I feel like I need to pull my voice in? But when we do the inner work and we do the outer work, we do the physical work and we look at the shadow of our voice, that is when we're unstoppable. Because this is when we get this unconscious competence, as Martin talks about, where we are truly in alignment with our voice. We have created new habits that are actually in alignment with who we really are. We are fully embodied, and these new habits are now embedded. So it becomes effortless. And if you've heard the term sort of being in a state of flow, you watch people, it doesn't matter what they do, people in the sporting world, musical world, speaking world, whatever area you're in, when someone is really in a state of flow, they are fully connected to their heart. They're fully connected to their body, their voice. They're not in their head. They're not thinking, "Oh my God, I've got to remember to pull my tummy in when I next say this word because I need to get the power out, or I need to remember to elevate my pitch a little bit, or I need to make sure I move my lips when I speak." You're not in your head. You're not thinking about that. It just effortlessly moves through you. It is so embodied. It's actually who you are. So then there's nothing stopping. Your voice is just coming through you, and you're not stopping it consciously or unconsciously. That's where we really want to get to, because that's when you're really powerful as a speaker. That's when you become really captivating, because you can really connect to the now. You can really connect to your body. You can connect to your audience. You can connect to your words. You're not in your head. You're not trying to micromanage your voice. You're not trying to micromanage your presentation. And that's what I see a lot. This is where for me, a lot of the voice coaching, public speaking stuff for me doesn't work, because it's all about micromanaging. Let's just script the perfect presentation, and then I'm going to teach you what to do with your hands at this point, and where to move your eyes at this point, and how to hold yourself at this point. It's exhausting, and it's all ego fueled. Why not just connect to yourself, do the inner work, do the physical work as well? Then there is no micromanaging, because your voice and your body and your mind are now all connected. So you don't have to overly kind of squeeze the living daylights out of everything you're saying. You just speak your truth. But this will not happen if you don't go within. So if you're looking for quick tips, quick fixes, you're not going to get to this place of mastery. And that's what I really, really want to really impart today, how important that is. Um, and so you may be watching the replay of this um, from a place of either stage 2 or stage 3. As I say, unlikely anyone's watching this in stage 1, because you wouldn't even be seeking anything out in stage 1. And just give yourself a break around needing to know everything, needing for it to be completed in a particular time. I mean, I hear this a lot from people, and I do get it. I do get it when you're investing money in something. How long is it going to take me for my voice to change? Will my voice change in 3 weeks? Will my voice change in 2 weeks? I don't know. How long is a piece of string? Or how committed are you? How courageous are you? How conscious are you? They would be my questions back. I can give you everything. I can give you all the tools, all the exercises, but I can't control how much resistance you have internally to having that. So yes, as I said earlier, you could do the practice, but unconsciously, if you fear being heard, you're not going to do the practice properly anyway. So that's why I really say to people, 2 months is, it really takes 2 months to kind of really create new habits when we're dealing with sort of neuromuscular patterns. And the voice is very complex from that perspective. There's so much going on with our voice. So the other thing I just want to say before I finish is we need to be driven by something beyond fear. And usually when people are looking for quick tips or quick fixes with anything, but let's keep the voice thing going on here. When people are looking for quick tips, it's because they're trying to avoid something. They're trying to circumvent a fear. So for example, if they mumble, because it's very common, I've got a presentation next week and I know I mumble and I don't want to mumble. So can you give me some quick tips to get through that? Well, as I said, we've got to look at the deeper reason why you're mumbling in the first place. But that is then really driven by fear, because I don't want to look stupid. I want to get the business. I want people to like me. I don't want to look like an idiot. So we're now trying to create new vocal habits from fear. It's never going to work. It's never going to work, because you've got to look at what you're really pushing away. So we need to come from a higher place to create change. So let go of what other people think about you. And I know that that is really hard. I get it. I'm human too. I have an ego as well. I get it. We so desire to be accepted. But you have to find some higher reason for doing this work, because you will otherwise give up. You will otherwise reach a plateau. You will make all kinds of excuses why you don't do your practice, why it's too difficult, why you're not going to invest the money. There's got to be a higher reason. And so you've got to really start to think about, what is it I'm here to do in the world? What is it I want to share? What's my real passion? And how is my voice going to serve that? What's my bigger mission, my bigger vision, my bigger purpose, my bigger passion? Because that is really what's going to see you through this process. And I say this, as someone that's been in this world for a long time. It would be so easy for me to give up at times, particularly when we're learning, because for anyone that's learned anything, even if you haven't learned anything new in a while, it isn't a linear process. I mean, I've talked about this as a linear process today, like stage 1, 2, 3, 4, but we know learning isn't linear. Often we flip-flop between the stages. We might get certain bits, we might not get other bits. Sometimes we just are feel stuck for a while. Sometimes we don't feel like we're really progressing. But that is all part of the learning journey. And when we're driven by fear and we want a quick tip, we're going to give up. We're going to like, oh, this is too hard. I'm not doing this. But when we're driven by something higher and deeper and more powerful, we don't give up. It's like, I know that I'm stuck for a reason because it's my own internal resistance to having the thing I say I want. And then we can do the deeper work. So I really challenge you, first of all, if you know your voice matters for your career, your business, which is, let's be honest, I mean, everyone needs their voice. It doesn't really matter what you do. Some people admittedly need it more than others, but everyone uses their voice. Then really start to get clear what is the payoff for me sort of staying in my current habits? If you're aware that you mumble, your voice is very monotone and lacks expression. You know, you run out of breath easily. You find it hard to project your voice. What are the payoffs for me staying there? What are the emotional payoffs? Because there will always be emotional payoffs because your true voice is expressive. So you've got to really get clear on what's the payoff. And then, as I say, start to connect to something higher. What would actually open up for me if I really allowed my voice out, if I really allowed myself to be heard? What kinds of opportunities would I go for? What kinds of opportunities would come to me? What kinds of clients would I end up working with? Because your voice is expressing everything you think and feel about yourself at the deepest level. And that's what we're all reading into. We're not listening to your words. You're not really listening to my words. I know you might think you are. You're not really. You're listening to my energy behind my voice. And so, you know, because probably a lot of what I'm saying, I've talked about a model here today that you've probably heard of before, but it's my tone, my energy, my presence, my passion that is really what you're reading into. So that's what you need to connect to. So start to just get very, very clear on how am I holding my voice back and what is, what could open up for me. So if you're really ready to become truly masterful at using your voice, I would love to help you. And as I said, my coaching is it's a 2-month intensive container, first of all, because as I said, it takes about 2 months to create real change. But then you have access to me for the following 6 months to have some check-ins, to be able to ask me questions, because I don't just want to like throw you out into the world. I want to be here to support you. So if you are interested in starting with me in January, then please book a 30-minute voice discovery strategy call below, £50. I charge purely just to make sure I'm only getting people that are serious, because I never used to charge anything and a lot of people just didn't show up. So it's amazing when you charge £50, people will always show up. So that's part of the reason why I do that, but also because I know the value you'll get in that call, even if you don't work with me. So, but if you do work with me, you would get that back anyway. So it's a win-win. Book a strategy call, and then we can talk about how this is really going to work in your voice, how I can really support you in reaching your goals, in your big dreams for 2024. Doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you want to start a podcast. Maybe you want to do your first keynote. Because actually right now, if you're interested in doing speaking and conferences next year, now is the time to apply for speaking for next year. So if you are looking to kind of get on some bigger stages, you don't want to wait until you need your voice. You need to do the work sooner rather than later, and then you can start to embed it and embody it. So I would love to speak to you if you're really serious, if you're ready to commit, if you're ready to step into your power, and you're ready to be consistent with your practice, leave all the excuses at the door, then I would love to work with you. But thank you so much. Thank you, Subrata, as well, for your comments. And thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed this. Any other comments from those of you that are watching the replay, please post below. Also, if you want to send me a message privately, you can go to my website. I've still got a holding page, actually. I haven't got my official website finished yet, but anuska-taylor.com. You can send me a message if you have a question that you don't feel comfortable posting below. But thank you so much. And I will be back doing some lives next year, but I will be releasing some more videos for the remainder of this year. So have a wonderful weekend and take care, everyone. Thank you so much.